My name is Leanna Clark. I am CEO of Girl Scouts of Colorado. I've been in this job for just over a year, and I've been in my career for about 30 years.
Awesome. And so, as the role of a CEO, how did you first decide that this was a career path you wanted to go after, and kind of first become interested in that?
I don't know that I ever had dreams of being a CEO. I studied journalism in college, and I wanted to be a reporter, a journalist. So when I graduated from college, I worked in journalism for a few years. I was a radio reporter in Denver, and then I moved to Nebraska, and I was on television for about 2 years. So I started off small market TV on the weekends. So I would do everything. I would shoot, I would edit, and then I'd do the newscast on my own. I'd do sports and weather, which is me doing sports was a stretch, and then the news. And I worked up from there to be the evening anchor and producer. Really liked what I was doing, but I was about to move from small town to small town and really wanted to get back to Colorado. So made a switch, made a leap, and moved back without a job, and kind of worked my way into marketing and public relations sort of via the back route. I think being flexible, being willing to take a risk. I mean, like I say, I left my first career without another job and just sort of took a leap of faith and thought that I would find something, and I did. I think also relying on others, building a network. Every job I've gotten since my very first one, I have not really applied for until Girl Scouts, because I've just known someone who opened a door for me, and that led to another, and that led to another. So I've had several career paths, all sort of starting with communications and marketing in some way, but then I built my own small business, continued to grow my network, and that just led from one thing to another. So I think being open to ideas, taking risks, building that network are really key. So that's hard to say. When I started in my career as a young journalist reporter, I was making about $13,000 a year, living in Nebraska, so barely eking by. And that, of course, was 30 years ago. So, you know, a lot has changed. So it's hard to say. Starting salary in a marketing communications field is probably mid-30s to mid-40s today. And that was sort of my background after I left journalism. So I think there's opportunity to do kind of what I've done, which is take that background and parlay it into life as a business person, as an entrepreneur for a while. I worked in international nonprofit for a while, in true corporate business for a while, and then ended up here. So as CEO, I would say the job doesn't really stop. So actually our offices are officially closed this week, but I'm working. But on the flip side, I you know, especially during COVID, I can take some time if I don't have meetings in the middle of the day and go walk my dog. So I kind of achieve balance in my own way. The work environment is a little challenging to describe since I started this job during COVID. So here we are in the office alone. I have been in the office, I came and set up my office and then really haven't worked here. So I know most of our staff via Zoom. So it's hard for me to say what it's going to be like when we get back. We are going to come back in a hybrid way, so folks will have more flexibility. It's been really interesting to learn culture and try to develop culture in a virtual environment. I think we've done some things that have worked that we're going to keep, but I'm also really excited to get folks back in person so that we can just get to know each other on a one-on-one basis, because we haven't been able to do that in the last year and a half. So a typical day can be anything from visiting a property. We have a real estate opportunities committee that we're working with that's helping us look at our properties and develop a true strategy around how we make sure that we're leveraging them and making them as accessible as possible for our girls. It can be reviewing a news release that we're sending out about our Gold Award girls. It can be meeting with a potential donor, doing some work on our Women of Distinction Gala that's coming up, reviewing a proposal we're submitting to a potential funder. So it really runs the gamut. It can be personnel issues. So during COVID, it's a little different. My commute is about 20 seconds down my stairs. So I'm an early person. So I usually start off at about 6 in the morning. I like to get through emails before meetings start and just get some things done and have a cup of coffee and watch the morning news. So I'll start early, get through emails, and then I usually start on Zooms at about 8 or 8:30 and tend to go straight through the day. I've started carving out some blocks of time where I'm not on Zooms, because you can just get so backed up. And then I've also started carving out time where it's office hours, where staff can just Zoom in and we can just talk. So I do about an hour and a half of that each week, which has been really, really nice. And I'd say one of my favorite things that I've been able to do is see the girls. And not as much as I'd like to, but we did our Cookie CEO event a few weeks ago, and it was just amazing to see the girls, because it just reminds you of why we do what we do. Challenges, I mean, I think as a working mom and a working single mom for a good part of my career, it's always balance, making sure that you're there for your kids while also being there for your career, and how you make those choices. And I think that's an ebb and flow depending on where you are in your life, and you just have to ask yourself what's most important and always have that sort of as your North Star. Challenges, I think also, I was a painfully shy little girl. I mean, horribly, horribly shy. And actually, I credit Girl Scout camp for helping me get over that shyness. So even in my career, I was a public relations person. I mean, everybody thought, well, you're a people person, that's what you do. And it was actually kind of the opposite. I really was very shy. So just pushing myself to network, to get out there. When I had my own business, my own agency, I had a staff of 30 relying on me. I pushed myself to network, to get to know people, and it really did become easier and easier. And now that network just pays off so much in my new role as CEO here, that I can pick up the phone and make those connections with people that I've met over the years. So that's a challenge that I definitely overcame. I think being in marketing and communications, folks look at you as being a little more creative, so you get a little more leeway to do things that are maybe a little more out there. I like taking risks. I like being creative. So real benefits to being able to do that. Also, I've always either had my own business or worked for an employer that believed in giving back to the community. So I've had a real opportunity to just serve on different boards of directors for nonprofits, serve on different things for the city and the state. Got very involved in education issues, so having employers who supported me doing that has been a huge benefit. Sure. I think, as I mentioned before, being a working mom and a working single mom, having your own business, which I did for many years, is great in that you set your own hours. It's, you run the show. Same here with Girl Scouts, but it also comes with huge responsibility because you've got a lot of people depending on you. And when I had my own business, I mean, if we don't make payroll, that's on me. So there's also a lot of stress involved in it. So yes and no. In some ways, there's a lot of flexibility, but in other ways, there's a lot of pressure. So I think you just have to keep asking yourself what's important and reminding yourself what's important. But I would say you can make it work. I mean, no matter what, your family always comes first. You just have to remember that that's the priority. And I had a former employer once who told me about, it's like having a platter full of different balls. And some of the balls bounce, some of the balls break, some of the balls just bounce right back up. And you're juggling those at all times. And you just have to remember which ones bounce and which ones, when they fall, break. And you got to protect those ones. So just making sure you remember what's important all the time. Definitely the girls. I mean, the girls are absolutely the best. When you get, just caught up in the day-to-day rat race and everything else, when I have a chance to interact with our girls, it just brings everything back to home and why we do what we do. And I would also say our properties. I mean, just getting to our properties. And I know what Girl Scout Camp did for me as a girl, so helping to make sure that we make those camps as accessible as possible to all of our girls across the state. It's interesting, again, coming into this job during COVID and in a virtual environment. It's going to change and that we're going to be face-to-face, thank goodness. But there are also some things about this time that I think we'll take with us. So I think the future will be a really interesting amalgamation of what we learned from COVID as a statewide organization. Virtual meetings really brought us together and broke down some barriers. But yet we're now going to be in person. So I think what's going to change and be really interesting is how we combine the two of those for the best of both worlds, which will be a definite change in my last year and a half, and a welcome change. I had a very good friend say to me once that sometimes you have to leave base camp to find the trail, which to me is a great Colorado hiking metaphor for you got to get out of your comfort zone. It's great to be at base camp, but sometimes you can't find the trail that you're meant to pursue unless you take a risk and step out. So that was really good advice. It's advice I wish I would have known earlier, and it's something that I would say I would definitely offer up to anyone who wants to do what I'm doing now.